kinesiophobia means fear of pain through movement. And it's not just common to sports people, it's common to everyone. And a good example is where a client of mine has had recurring low back pain for the last 20 years. And it's, it varies from, okay, I can live with that, to really acute, I can't get up out of bed because I'm in so much pain, those sort of levels. And it comes on fairly randomly. So I only saw her about 6 months ago, and so started treating, and a significant amount of the limitations she put on herself were because she knew that by doing certain movements they would cause pain. And so she got to the point where she didn't do those movements because she knew that would cause pain, or she thought she knew that would cause pain because she's so used to that causing pain, that basically she just stopped doing those particular movements. Now, the downside of that is that the body is made to move. So the less you move, the stiffer it gets. The stiffer it gets, the more prone it gets to, when it does start to move, the more prone it gets to irritation, inflammation, and pain. So what I'm doing with her is taking it right back to basics and going, well, okay, actually your back is fine. There's no, it's been MRI'd and there's no obvious physical injury to her back. A lot of it, and a classic example of somebody who has kinesiophobia in this example was basically, we were talking about, well, okay, this is a process, this is what we're going to do, this is how we can improve your situation. So I said, yeah, after a while you'll be able to do this. And I just bent down to the floor and picked something up, and then she looked at me and went, ah! And that was just me doing the movement. So in her head, it was like, well, God, if I tried to do that, my back would break in half. And that's how powerful kinesiophobia can be. It can be just seeing somebody else do a movement that you're terrified of doing can cause that sort of response. So, in a nutshell, kinesiophobia, fear of pain through movement. You've sprained an ankle. A sprained ankle is a good one because most people can relate to that. Basically, you sprain an ankle, so you put 40% of your weight through the sprained ankle and 60-70% of your weight through the one that's still working. So you limp around a bit. And as the ankle gets better, you start to put more weight through it, but you still got that imbalance. So even when the ankle is fully recovered and you're not in any pain at all, your body is used to the new movement pattern, so you're putting 52% of your weight through one side and 48% through the other. And I suspect that if we looked at your broken ankle, I don't know how your rehab went, but you may find that there's still a little bit of an imbalance between the weight on one side and the other.
Oh, I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised.
Yeah, but this is the thing. I mean, what I like about gymnastics, which you can't really say with other sports, is gymnastics is very, very 50-50. You're using both limbs pretty much as much as each other, whereas things like tennis, boxing, football, to an extent rugby, they're all very one-sided. So they tend to overdevelop on one side, and they have to work really hard to try and maintain that balance and become less prone to injury. But for gymnastics, like I said, it's very important for what you do to have that symmetry, that evenness between left and right. It would be interesting to take someone like yourself, have a look at how you do certain movements and see whether there is any bias. Because you did say you broke your ankle, didn't you, a while ago?
Yeah, I did it in March this year.
This year?
Yeah. So I did it at a competition as well. I did it at the English. The thing is with it, it was kind of like an acute injury, but also kind of not, in the sense that the ankle was hurting before, but I thought it was just like one of those things you just sort of get on with, and eventually, literally just one bad landing too many, and it just broke. And yeah, I mean, I still did a routine afterwards, but like,
Of course you did. It's like, why wouldn't you?
yeah, which I don't know if it was a good idea or a bad idea, but probably a bad idea. But like, I don't think that did any more damage to it. But yeah, it was literally just one too many that ended up actually being the thing that broke it.
Yeah.
And I've had other issues with that ankle since in like a different place. So maybe I didn't rehab it well enough before I got back onto it. Maybe I tried to go back onto it too soon.
Yeah.
Which is a similar thing, really. Like, I didn't give it enough time to get back to symmetry before I started pushing it, and I'll still feel it every now and again, to be fair.
Okay, so there's kind of two things for an ankle injury. One of them is, as you point out, people tend to go back to training when the pain stops. And I'll bet in your case, before the pain stops, just because you're a gymnast. So they tend to go back to training before the pain, when the pain stops, or when the pain significantly reduces, and they think, okay, I can get back to normal. But the problem with an ankle sprain is that, or an ankle sprain or a break, is that although the pain has gone, basically, if you've got any torn ligaments, which you probably have with an ankle break, they take more time to heal. So it's a bit like if you have a cut and it scabs over, and then underneath it the skin kind of slowly gets replaced. So you get a little bit like that with damaged ligaments, where it gets replaced with a temporary kind of fix of collagen, but then over time that gets replaced by stronger collagen, which makes it stronger, which is why if you go back to training whatever it is before that collagen's fully replaced, there's a good chance that you're going to injure it again because it's not strong enough. It's a bit like I said, it's a bit like with the scab, where the scab covers over the cut, but over time the scab falls off and you've got fresh skin underneath. Although you don't get a scab, you get a temporary fix, so you can actually get mobile again. But over a few more weeks, that gets replaced by stronger collagen. So that's one of the things that tends to happen. The other thing is that you've got these, and I don't want to start throwing loads of technical biological stuff at you, but you've got these things called retinacular. Basically, you've got balance receptors in your foot.
Sure.
To put it simply, so you have balance receptors in your foot. Now, if you disrupt those balance receptors with an injury, you then have to retrain those balance receptors so that they go back to where they were before. There's this thing called proprioception.
Yeah.
So proprioception, do you know about proprioception?
Yeah.
So you've got proprioceptive receptors in your ankle, knee, elbows, hands, etc., etc. So for the listeners that don't know, it's where you can close your eyes, put your finger on your nose. You can close your eyes and put your finger. It's your body awareness. So your brain has a map of the body and where it is in time and space. So if you have an injury, it can affect that proprioception, and it can affect. So effectively, especially if it's a foot, it can affect balance. If it's a knee, it can affect balance. So part of the training that you do is to retrain that proprioception, so your body regains that body awareness. It's one of those things that particularly with gymnasts, because do you know about hypermobility? Yeah. So
I don't have it, but I know about it.
Oh, you don't have it?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, this is the thing. So one of the things about people with hypermobility is they tend to get drawn to things like gymnastics, because they can do all the stretches now and it's really, really easy for them. But one of the issues with it is that they tend to be more prone to injury because they've got superlax ligaments and they're very stretchy and bendy. They don't have a great body awareness or body sense. So their proprioception is poor, so they have to spend time, as well as building strength to support the muscles and joints, which they don't get from the ligaments, but they also have to train harder to build that proprioception and body awareness.
Yeah, I've seen, I mean, this is just sort of like a first person account, so it's not like based in science or anything, but I've seen with people that are very flexible, not specifically hypermobile, but just very flexible, aren't able to like hold their shapes as well. In terms of doing giants around the bar, I've seen it in men's and women's, like just doing like swings around the bar. Like they'll do the action slightly wrong, they won't arch at the right time, and they'll end up like doing a massive arch over the bar, and it just, the action's just actively like just incorrect. But some people just get it straight away, and normally I've seen that those are the people that maybe don't have as much flexibility in their backs.
And that kind of ties in what I was saying. It's because the more flexible they are, the less body awareness they've got, the less proprioceptive feedback they've got, because their limbs tend to be a little bit looser. So it's not that they won't get it; they just have to work a lot harder to get it than somebody like yourself who's had to work on developing the flexibility to do those kind of movements. So so that kind of ties in with what I was thinking as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's about finding a balance always.
See what you did there.
If you've got too much, you gotta push it one way. If you've got too little, then you gotta push it the other way. It's just always how it is. No one's got the perfect amount of everything all the time, so you gotta find what's wrong and then push it in the right direction.
No, exactly that. Yeah.
So in terms of kinesiophobia again, so as an athlete, what do you reckon the issue of, I guess, having an imbalance would be? So if, I don't want to use the example of an ankle again because we've done that to death already. Like if someone's got a bad shoulder, I do that. I say that example because I've got two. If someone has a bad shoulder, what would be the repercussions of not addressing it? Like addressing the imbalance, I should say. Okay,
so if you've got, say, a bad shoulder, particularly for the sort of movements that you do as a male gymnast, what happens? So the classic kinesiophobia case is if you are doing an overhead movement for whatever reason, if you have an injured shoulder, there's going to be an maybe imperceptible reluctance to actually do that movement. So if you've done a movement that you know has caused you pain in the past, your brain remembers that pain and then it goes, no, you don't want to do that. So even though you may physically force yourself to make that movement, there's that little niggly thing in the back of your brain going, don't do it because it's going to hurt. If that makes sense. So if you doing whatever, if you have to use both hands, but you know that one of them is injured, even though it may be feeling better, and you may have trained and rehabbed and you've done all the right things, and in terms of strength they're about the same, then that potentially there's that niggly little thought at the back of the brain, maybe even unconsciously, that slows that arm down just a little bit, because there's that memory that this movement caused pain before, so it might cause it again. So that's kind of the danger of having that imbalance or having that fear of movement. Now, if that happens, and like I said, so you've experienced it. So if that happens, what you can do, the way around it, is to take it right back to basics, because your brain is aware that by doing certain movement, it caused pain, and it caused significant pain and injury. So even when you've trained it and you've rehabbed it and it's all 100%, there may still be that threat buried in the subconscious that says, if I do this, it's going to cause an injury. So what you have to do is you have to retrain the brain to go, actually, this is okay. So the way to do that is you go right back to basics, and whatever the basics are, and you kind of build up from there. So what probably happens, especially for an athlete at your level, is you want to get straight back in doing the best performance you can do as soon as possible. Now, to overcome that subconscious threat fear that's going on in the back of your head, you probably would be better to go back to some more basic movements and get those nailed first, because the brain goes, oh, okay, actually I can do this and this is all right. And then kind of build from there, so like I said, I suspect that's kind of what you want to do. You want to get straight back in there, straight back to a level 10 as soon as possible. But it may be better to start off at a level 5 and then just build, play with that for a week or two, get that confidence back, and then build from there. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's 100% true.